Hi again. Hope everyone's doing really well this week. I wanted to come back and talk a little bit more about me learning to knit. Um, Knitting's one of those things that I've always gone, hey, that's really awesome. Not for me. Mostly because my space is really tiny and I never wanted to add to my stash. I was like, I don't have space. Also, it's really hot in Sydney, and I just was like, oh, it's all jumpers and stuff. I don't need those kinds of garments. But then I was scrolling through Instagram, like I said, in my goals list for the year, and I saw this amazing photograph, and it was from Summer Lee Knits, and it was all of the socks that she had made for the year, and they were just like this gorgeous, squishy bunch of beautiful, bright, coloured pattern socks, and I was like, I want that. And so then I started to learn to knit. So obviously I got started massively helpful by the Englishman's mum helping me out. We had lots of sessions sitting on the couch in front of the fire learning how to knit, which was just mind blowing in her skill and just so thankful. And like my own mum knits, and normally if I want something knitted, like if I want a hat or a scarf or something, I just send mum the wool and the pattern and she does it for me. But I never actually like thought to ask her to show me how to do it because she enjoys doing it. So I just gave it to her. So while I had an idea of the skill, the actual getting started bit has been quite the challenge. So it's what, like beginning of March-ish now, middle of March, and honestly, my entire knitting so far has been, this is awesome, I'm learning new things, to, oh my gosh, this is terrible, this is the worst thing ever, I'm never going to get anything done, to, hey, I made stuff, which has been quite the journey. So I was going to show you a little bit about what I was doing and how I started. So while I was overseas, we were just practicing on sort of like random spare pieces and some different needles, which was cool. And then when I came back, I went to Spotlight because it was like the 2nd of January and nothing else was open. So I got myself some needles. And one of the things I very specifically wanted to do with knitting is I didn't want to use plastic as often as I could. So I got myself metal needles. I also happened to choose the packaging because they were the only ones that were packaged in cardboard and not inside plastic. So, you know, I was even looking at that. And I don't want to use acrylic threads. I don't want to add more plastic to the environment. Like, I'm lucky enough in that I can afford not to do these things, so I'm going to. So, things that I've knitted. This was my first attempt. Oh, actually, no, this was my first attempt. Yes, it really does look this sad. It was, so it's 100% cotton thread. I'm trying to just do like a plain garter stitch down here and then a stocking stitch up here. And yeah, it's not the best. There's kind of some raggedy edges and bits. And then I think I stopped because I think I dropped a stitch or something and I couldn't figure out what to do. And I was like, okay, we might just leave this here. Because I'm really not sure. I still don't know how to unpick it, as it were. And I kind of get stuck. And I can sometimes go backwards a little bit, but I can't go backwards a long way. So that's sort of on my list of things that I need to know about. So this was my first sort of sorry attempt. Got some hints from both the mums. Started again. And they were like, just practice on doing something simple. So I've been doing like washcloths, face cloths, basically. Sorry if you can hear the noise in the background. I stupidly put the dishwasher on before I started, and now it's making all these gurgly sounds. So sorry about that. So this is my second piece. So slightly less ragged, slightly more holes, a couple of different stitch types, but you know, it was a thing. It's kind of getting there, but yeah, I found binding on and binding off really tricky, and I think everyone keeps saying my tension was very tight, but I found it really hard on my wrists and my hands were getting quite sore. So I've got one wrist which is a little bit creaky from using blunt scissors, so always keep your scissors sharp. But yeah, it wasn't the best. So then I went on and I tried some stripes just because I was like, how hard could this be? Also learnt a lot off YouTube, so that's been great. So I did some stripes and then I was kind of like, I cast on, I don't know, however many things in between, and I just couldn't get things to work. I either couldn't knit into the cast on, I couldn't get the cast on to work, I'd drop my needles, things would fall everywhere. It was a whole thing. And so I was just like, okay, let's just kind of start again and reset. So I got some different kind of cotton yarn, still 100% cotton, but this one's a variegated thread. And when I was a kid learning to sew, often my mum would be like, if you can't get inspiration from like what you're working on now, sometimes like walk away, go start a new piece, do something different, and then you get past the block. So I was using this theory and hoping that it worked. So I went on from using it and I made a washcloth. I still have to learn how to weave in ends, so that's, they're still a bit stringy. So I have to learn how to do that, and none of them have been blocked or washed or any of that because I don't know how to do that yet. But I'm working on it. So one washcloth, that was a big success. So then I went straight to another one. And these were all free patterns that I found online, so that I'd get used to learning how to read a pattern and knowing what the abbreviations and things meant. And then, so like out of this, I kind of got 3 washcloths, which I was pretty excited about. I think each one of them possibly has like 1 or 2 mistakes in it, but I was like, hey, that's not too bad. Then I thought, okay, I will start a scarf. So I followed a pattern. It's the Pearl Soho, I want to say Lovely Rib, but it's just completely gone out of my head. I think it's the Lovely Rib scarf. I made it a bit narrower because when I started, I wasn't still very good at handling long pieces. But then my tension got really tight, so my slightly narrower scarf ended up very narrow because my tension is very tight. But thankfully, as you stretch the ribs, it does get quite big. So this is in 100% wool. Again, I just got the yarn from Spotlight. It's wonderfully squishy. It's very nice. It feels ever so slightly scratchy today because it's so hot. But it feels nice when it's not so hot. But yeah, it kind of stretches out nicely. And because of my tension, I used 3 balls of wool, and I still only have a scarf that, well, this is doubled. It's this long. It's quite short. It's just enough to put around my neck. It's just too hot. Put around my neck, and I can tie like 1 knot. So, it's enough for my first one. But I certainly learnt a lot about how tight my hands are and how to keep it all through. And there's 1 or 2 things here where maybe I've turned it the wrong way and I've knitted instead of purled, or vice versa. I managed to join in the middle of a row, which I was very excited about, and I managed to join at the end of a row. So like, it's little steps at the moment, but it's really fun. I really like learning something new, which I didn't consider when I started. I was all just like focused on like, hey, might be able to make socks. But just the process of learning something new has been really wonderful for me. It sparked lots of new ideas and like how I can combine things, which was unexpected but very joyful. So that was really good. So at the moment I have something else. I'm trying circular needles for the first time, which I may have tangled my hands up in them more than once. And it's kind of wonderful to be really bad at something. It's been so long since I've been a beginner at things that it's just really great to start at the beginning and to realize that patience is the key. Yeah, I'll see how I go. But yeah, I'm going to do these little knitting drop-ins every so often so you can see what I'm up to. And it is going to be very chaotic like today is, where it's like things that I'm working on. Yeah, just seeing how I learn. But yeah, it's been great. Thanks so much to the Englishman's mum for helping me out to get started, and to my own mum who like I can send photos to, and she's like, yeah, do this, which is just fabulous. I can't wait to go catch up with her again and be able to sit and knit. Apparently she has told my grandmother that I am learning to knit, and to which I think the response was, it's about time. So yeah, it's been great. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'll be sharing the journey with you some more. Okay, I'll see you again soon. Bye.